Once outside, the scuttlebutts are caught by the police, who are waiting with weapons drawn. "All right, scumbags, hands up," Jerome yells. Jack replies in a nervous voice, "That's scuttlebutts, not scumbags." "What?" Jerome asks. "Our name is scuttlebutts. You said our name was scumbags." Jerome walks up to Jack. "Excuse me. Your name is whatever I say it is. You got that? And by the way, this goes for all of you. You shouldn't be talking anyway unless you want to incriminate yourself and save us the time of sending you to trial, where you will be sent to prison to become some inmate's girl." Jerome looks at the scuttlebutt's leader and one of the men standing next to him and says, "I can tell that you're going to be pretty popular when you guys go in." After Jerome's rousing statement, Jack pees himself. The cops are shocked to see such a display of fear. Tim walks over to Jerome and pats him on the shoulder. "Oh man, I'm just glad that you didn't scare the you-know-what out of them, Jerome." Ben, one of the officers with Tim and Jerome, looks at one of the men that was next to Jack and is grossed out. "Too late. Looks like this guy went above and beyond the call of duty." Everyone looks back at that guy and sees brown stains of a bowel movement on his pants. The cops are grossed out and start putting the scuttlebutts into the paddy wagon. While all this is happening, Sonya and her men are watching everything from a safe distance in an empty apartment close by. "Looks like everything went off without a hitch," she says. "I just think it's a little strange, though, that the police were there so quickly." She stares out the window, confused. The men in the room gather up their stuff to leave. "I guess we can go report back to my father," Sonya says. As she and her men are about to leave, a group of masked and armed men burst through the door and start shooting at them. Sonya is knocked to the ground by one of her men who is trying to keep her from getting killed, but not before she gets hit in her side by one of the bullets. The police bust in right behind the gunmen and take them down. Then they start checking Sonya and her men, as well as the masked gunmen, for survivors. Tim walks over to Sonya, kneels down beside her, and checks her out all over. He looks around for Ben and tells him to come over. Sonya is watching Tim and Ben while clutching her side. Tim notices the wound and how much blood Sonya has lost. "I see it," Tim says to Sonya, and touches her on her head gently. He turns to Ben and instructs him to make sure an ambulance is on the way. Ben nods and walks off. Jerome walks up to Tim and asks for a status report. Tim tells Jerome, "She is alive, but barely." Tim turns his attention back to Sonya and puts his hand on the wound to help stop the bleeding. "Just hang in there. Help is on the way." Jerome comes over and looks at Sonya. She looks up at Jerome and then passes out. Tim checks her to make sure she is all right. "Is this her?" Jerome asks. When Tim nods, Jerome adds, "Well, Miss Sonya, please live. Your big brother Mark will be very happy to see you." A cop walks over to Jerome and whispers something to him while Tim strokes Sonya's face gently. "We have 2 more who are still alive, but I don't think they'll make it," Jerome tells Tim. "Who are these men?" Tim asks. Jerome takes off one of the shooter's masks. He looks at the shooter and is shocked. "These are Assassin's men, and you know as well as I do that Assassin works for Mickey." Tim stares at Assassin's guy. "What? Yes," Jerome interrupts. "These men work for Mickey. It looks like Mickey sent Assassin's men here to kill her. I wonder why." "Beats me," Tim responds. "That man has always been nuts." He looks at Sonya and shakes his head. "Jeff and his team should be moving in to capture Mickey, and we can ask Mickey when we see him." Over at the train station warehouse, Bullseye and his men are gathering the last of the shipment when Mark and the other cops come busting in with their guns drawn. "Hands up," Mark shouts. Bullseye and his crew look surprised as they all get taken into custody. Mark turns and looks at his fellow officer Sheila and says, "Well, that takes care of this group. I hope the other guys are having good luck." Sheila responds, "Me too." At the same time, Jake and his squad watch Kiss Up and his crew arrive at the rendezvous point off Highway 10 on a deserted road. Kiss Up sees the truck arrive, and then his men unload the drugs from the truck. Jake and his squad move in to capture Kiss Up and his crew. "All right, guys, hands up," Jake shouts. Kiss Up and his men look completely surprised and a bit disappointed. Kiss Up shakes his head and says to his men, "Oh, great. We've been set up." "You sure were," Jake replies. "Now shut up, fool, and listen to me as I read you your rights." On a nearby hilltop, While all of these different events are happening, Crazy, Killer, and Bonebreaker are all watching everything that is happening to Kiss Up and his group. "Good," says Crazy. "It looks like it went off the way it was supposed to at the truck delivery. How did things go off at the train station?" Killer responds, "Just as you thought. The cops were there waiting for them." "Good, good," Crazy replies. "Now, is Sonya safe?" "Informer has not reported back to me yet." "All right," Crazy says. "Let me know as soon as Informer reports in." Bonebreaker and Killer both nod. Over at Mickey's hideout, Jeff and his men storm in, capturing Mickey and his remaining men. 2 officers walk Mickey over to Jeff. Well, looks like we've caught ourselves a big fish here. Mickey, what happened to you?" "Seems like you're losing your touch," Jeff says. Mickey has an evil smirk on his face as he responds, "Maybe. I guess if you weren't so busy trying to kill your daughter, maybe you wouldn't have been here to get captured," Jeff says. Mickey looks at Jeff with a psychotic look and laughs. "Don't you try to school me on what I'm supposed to do. She isn't my real daughter. She's just a stand-in to be disposed of whenever it pleases me." "You're sick," Jeff says. "Get him out of my sight." 2 officers haul Mickey off. He turns around while they're taking him away and says, "What's wrong, Jeff? Did you want me to answer you differently?" He starts laughing sinisterly as they continue to haul him away. Informer is watching everything from a safe distance on top of a skyscraper that has a view of everything except where Kiss Up had been. He calls Crazy and tells him how everything is going off, just like they planned. He also tells Crazy about the whole situation with Sonya. "Well, it looks like you were right," Informer says. "Mickey did have something bad planned for her. The police came in just in the nick of time." "Where is she now?" Crazy asks. "She is being taken to the hospital. Looks like she's wounded badly, but I think she will survive. I'll get the information from the hospital about her status. As soon as I do and we know she is better, we can retrieve her," Informer replies. "I had a feeling he would try something, and you're right about leaving her there at the hospital. I want her healed before we move her. Besides, she's safer there until we complete my plan." "Yes, boss," Informer says. Crazy also tells Informer to keep up with Mickey. "I don't want anything to go wrong, because if it does, and Mickey finds out, we are all dead. Do you understand?" Informer tells Crazy he understands, then ends the call. Mark gets a call on his cell phone from Jerome, who informs him about what happened at the apartment. "I'm glad to hear she's okay," Mark says. "I'll swing by and see her before I go home." "All right, see you later," Jerome replies. At the police station, Jeff is sitting at his desk when Tim walks into his office. "Yes, Tim, what is it?" "Mickey's lawyer is here, sir." "Send him in." Jeff, brother Eric, walks into Jeff's office. "Well, Jeff, looks like you are still playing the good guy," he says. "Eric, how nice to see you. What are you doing here?" Eric smirks and tells Jeff, "I'm here for my client. I hope you're not questioning him without his lawyer." "Eric, why do you defend people like him?" Jeff says. "You know he's bad. Why do you do it?" "Because the money is good, and the women are fine. Listen, little brother, don't question me about my reasons, okay?" "I'm not," says Jeff. "I'm just trying to figure lawyers like you out." "Oh, I see. Well, that will just remain a mystery, won't it?" Jeff replies, "Yes, big brother, I guess it will. I can't understand you." "Don't try to, okay? Mom and Dad didn't understand me either when they were around." "That's not true, Eric. They cared about you as I do," says Jeff. "What happened to you?" "I grew up, and I stopped playing around," Eric says. "Don't worry about me, Jeff. I'll be fine." Jeff starts to reply, but Eric interrupts him. "I've got to go, little bro. Take care." He gets up, and when he gets to the door, he turns around and looks at Jeff. "Oh, and by the way, my client will be out of here within the hour." Jeff stands up. "That's not possible." Eric laughs. "Just watch me," he says, and leaves Jeff's office. Tim comes in right after. "Sir, are you okay?" Jeff shakes his head. Yeah, I just got some family issues. Oh, I understand, sir. Sometimes family can be your worst enemy. Jeff looks at Tim curiously. Tim never talks about his family situation or his past. Do you have any brothers? Jeff asks. What? Tim asks, like he doesn't understand the question. Anyway, sir, whatever his reasons are, we don't know. The only way to help him is to get the people over Eric, starting with Mickey. So we need to make sure that the drug charges stick. Jeff smiles. You're right. It may be the only way we can help Sonya for Mark, too, he says. Tim agrees, and only then does Jeff realize Tim had avoided answering the question about siblings. He must really like to keep his private life private. I'm going to try and get him to tell me something. Jeff is about to ask Tim a question when Jerome pokes his head into the office. Look who I have here, he says with excitement. Jeff and Tim both look at Jerome with curious expressions, wondering who it is. Their question is answered when Bullseye pops into Jeff's office. Tim and Jeff smile and laugh as they walk up to him. Ah, man, great to see you again. It's been too long since you left to go undercover. Things sure have been boring around here without you, Tim says. He shakes Bullseye's hand and gives him a pat on the back. Yeah, man, it's great to see you back home safe. He shakes Bullseye's hand and gives him an approving nod. It has definitely been too long, Bullseye replies. Aren't you worried that when they find out what you've done, they'll kill you? Tim asks. Well, I'm a little worried, but I think I have an ace up my sleeve, Bullseye says with a concerned look. And what exactly would that be? Jeff asks. Bullseye smiles. Well, sir, I'm the one who told the cops about where Sonya and her men were, so basically, you could say I saved her life. I see, Jeff says. And you think Mickey will keep you alive because of that? Bullseye shakes his head. No, I think Crazy will. I think that guy is more powerful than we think he is. By the way, how is she? Jeff tells him that Sonya was wounded badly, but she is going to be okay. The bullet didn't do any real damage to her organs, so this will help her pull through a lot better, Jeff says. Bullseye seems pleased and tells everyone that he will talk with them later. Where are you going? Tim asks. Home. I've missed the old place. Do you think that's wise? Jeff asks, looking puzzled. Yes, I do. Besides, they don't know where I live and I have my insurance policy, Sonya. Jeff looks concerned. I'm against this, but all right. However, if you think anything is strange, I want you to come back here immediately. Call me any time, Bullseye. Yes, sir, Bullseye replies. Goodbye, guys. Tell Mark hi for me. Bullseye leaves and Jerome shakes his head. I hope for his sake he doesn't do anything stupid. He gives Tim a look as if to say, you know what I mean. Jerome leaves to go check on Mark at the hospital, and Tim is heading out the door as well when Jeff stops him. What did Jerome mean by that? He asks. Tim sighs and answers, well, it's just that Mark's wife Debbie used to go out with Bullseye, and then she dumped him for Mark. Jeff is shocked at the news. Really? I thought that was Jake. No, Jake was before Bullseye. Jeff looks more confused than ever. Tim can see that Jeff doesn't understand what is going on, so he tries to tell him what he knows. Bullseye told Jerome and me that he never stopped sleeping with Debbie when her and Mark started dating and that he asked her to choose between him and Mark. She chose Mark, of course. After that, she went to Mark and confessed everything. They worked out all of their problems, and then they got married. Wait, Jeff says. What is it, sir? Tim asks. How long have Mark and Debbie been married? 2 years, Tim replies. When exactly did Bullseye leave for his 2-year undercover operation? Tim nods. I see what you're getting at, sir, and so did Jerome. He tried to warn Mark, but Mark wanted to give her a chance to prove that she wasn't still messing around with Bullseye. And whatever happened on the night of Mark's wedding between Debbie and Bullseye must have been big. He left the night after the wedding to go work undercover as one of Mickey's men. Jeff can't believe what he is hearing. How is Mark when this all went down? Mark says that he has forgiven them, but he still doesn't trust Bullseye. I can't say I blame him. Jeff looks upset. What the heck is going on around here? Am I running a soap opera, or what? Tim assures Jeff that he is not. He starts to leave, but before he goes out the door, he turns around. Sir, I would suggest you talk to Jerome. He can be quite informative, he says. Thanks. I'll do that. I just hope Bullseye has gotten over her during these past 2 years, Tim adds, and then leaves Jeff's office. Mark arrives at the Metro Hospital and heads inside Sonya's hospital room. She is patched up and awake in bed. Hi, I'm Mark, he says. Hi, Sonya replies. Sonya, I wanted to ask you a question. Do you feel up to it? She shrugs. Sure. Do I look familiar to you? Mark asks. She studies Mark and then replies, Not really. Should I know you? Well, it's been many years since you and I have seen each other. You were a little girl about 5 years old the last time you saw me, and I looked differently then. Sonya is trying to search her memory, but she can't place Mark. But, going over what she remembers, she tells Mark she doesn't remember everybody's face. She asks if he was one of the gangster kids that her parents would let her hang out with. Mark nods. Yes. I was the boy that would always make sure you had something to eat and some place to sleep. I do remember a little of that, but ever since the day my mom took me to Mickey, I can't really remember anything, Sonya says. It's understandable. Why don't I fill in the blanks? Mark says. Sonya tells Mark that would be great. He starts telling Sonya what it was like living in the abandoned warehouse. He also tells her what happened that day after her mother took her away. Mark tells her about his personal life and hopes to get her to talk about hers. He and Sonya are becoming acquainted with each other, and Mark is glad that Sonya seems to be a good person. So, Mark, tell me about this wife of yours. She's great and she has a kind heart. I know that once the two of you get to know each other, you'll be very good friends. I'm sure we will, or at least we'll be polite to each other, she replies. So, was it love at first sight? Mark looks down, a bit embarrassed, and then looks at Sonya. She wonders why he's giving that look, but she can tell he is not ready to talk about it. So she just lets him tell her whatever he wants for the time being. Sonya asks, How has it been for you two? Fine. There were 2 other men fighting for her at the time, but I was the man that won her heart. Oh? Tell me about it. Mark tells Sonya about Jake first, and then he talks about Bullseye. When Mark mentions Bullseye, Sonya is shocked to find out that he is a cop. She wonders to herself, could Bullseye be the one Mickey has been looking for? Mark interrupts her thoughts. I never stopped trying to get to you. I was finally able to find out where you were thanks to Jerome. I just didn't know how to get to you safely, he says. Mark and Sonya smile at each other and hold hands. Mark asks Sonya what was it like for her with Mickey, why she stayed with him, and what she has been up to in her personal life besides the criminal activities. She takes a deep breath and begins to tell Mark about what it has been like for her. I guess I should tell you what happened when I arrived at Mickey's house after my mother was killed. Mark encourages her to continue. He introduced me to his wife first. She seemed very cold. Then he introduced me to his children. They seemed to look down on me. He had gossip show me to my room. Did they mistreat you? He asks. Not physically, but they acted like I didn't exist. I was all alone until I met some friends. Sonya is interrupted by Jerome's arrival. All right, what is going on here? Jerome asks as he walks into Sonya's hospital room. Mark turns around and replies, Oh, hi, Jerome. What are you doing here? Making sure you stay focused. He gives Mark a disapproving look. I assure you I am, he replies. Mark, we don't have time for a walk down memory lane. I'll take over the questioning from now on. Mark tries to stop him, but Jerome pushes past him and walks up to Sonya. Look, we don't have a lot of time to waste, so I'm going to play bad cop here if I have to, he says. Jerome, Sonya interrupts. It's all right, Mark. I'll answer him. Jerome responds, Good, I'm glad we're on the same page. Let's get started. I want to know everything that happened at the bank robbery today. Also, who was the real boss over today's activities? I know it's not you, because you wouldn't have gotten yourself shot. Is there any plan for more drug shipments? Sonya looks over at Mark for approval. He gives Sonya a nod to go ahead. Mickey planned the whole thing, she says, and he always keeps a copy of his plans on his computer. Jerome and Mark are shocked. Are you serious? Jerome asks. Sonya says, yes. Now, of course, it's not visible to the naked eye. It might be encrypted. If you don't see it there, check his wife's computer. What type of stuff do you think is on his computer that would allow us to prosecute him? Jerome asks. Sonya thinks for a moment as the two officers watch her. I thought of something. I hope this will be enough. He uses an alias when he is expecting a shipment, so if you can tie the alias to him, then you've got him, she says. Mark and Jerome exchange glances. Does he use this alias outside of his criminal activities? Mark asks. Yes, whenever he takes trips and gets speeding tickets, he uses his alias, so you should have them in your records. Also, another thing is that when he arranges the shipment, he signs the paperwork. She stops and looks at Jerome and Mark, confused. What? Mark asks. Sonya replies, I can't believe you guys had someone on the inside, and you did not know this already. Hasn't that guy been telling you anything? Mark and Jerome look at each other and nod in agreement. That is a good question. Jerome, you need to check your informers and tell Jake to check his, Mark says. I will, Jerome replies. I'll have the guys check for his alias signature and match it against his real signature to prove that he was the one who masterminded all of these plans over the years. Mark smiles. We've got him. Sonya lies back in bed. Mark turns to her with concern. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm just really tired now, she says. Mark takes her hand. Well then, rest, and I will come and see you later, he tells her. All right, Mark. I look forward to seeing you again, and I'm glad I could help. Mark watches Sonya close her eyes, and then he and Jerome leave the hospital room. Well, what do you want to do now? Jerome asks. We've got a lot of things, including getting a warrant to look at Mickey's wife's computer, he answers. The DA will work on that. Why don't you go home to your wife and get some rest? Maybe you can dig around some more into getting evidence against Mickey to save Sonya from him. From what I'm hearing, his lawyer will get him off soon. Okay, while you guys get that sorted, I'll take a break at home and hang out with my wife a bit. First thing in the morning, I'll look everything over, Mark replies. Sounds like a plan. See you later, Jerome says. Mark says goodbye to Jerome and then leaves to go home. Once Mark arrives home, he goes inside, grabs Debbie and kisses her. It's just you and me. Keep tonight, he says. Debbie smiles and tells him she's going to fix him a good dinner tonight of steak and potatoes, and for dessert, home-baked cherry pie. Mark tells her that sounds great. He'll go take a shower while she is cooking. Mark heads upstairs to the bathroom when the phone rings. Debbie answers the phone. Hello, she says. She tells the caller to hold on and goes and gets Mark. Mark, it's the record clerk Gina on the phone. Mark picks up the phone. Hello? How's Cleo doing? Gina asks, using the code that Mark told her to use. Great. So what have you been up to? Mark asks. Oh, nothing. Just that it's a dog-eat-dog world, you know. True, replies Mark. You know, my friend got $730. Mark remembers their earlier conversion in Gina's office when he told her how they should contact each other in code. He looks at the clock to see what time it is. 6:45 p.m. You don't say. Mark tells Gina he's got to go, his wife is calling him, and that he will talk to her later. They say their goodbyes, and then Mark goes and tells Debbie that he's got some police business and that he will be back later. Sure, she says in a sarcastic tone. Mark caresses Debbie's face. We will talk about this when I get home. He kisses Debbie goodbye and then leaves to go to the theater to meet Gina. Mark arrives at the movie theater and checks around to make sure he hasn't been followed. Then he goes inside. He buys a ticket for the movie I Love My Dog playing at 7:30 p.m. He walks inside the theater and sees Gina sitting in the back row, up against the left side wall. She turns and spots him. He walks over to her. While he is doing this, he is also taking observation of who is around in the theater. No one seems out of place. Mark sits down next to Gina. So what is it? He asks. Well, he interrupts Gina. Wait a minute, were you followed? No, she replies. Okay, sorry. Continue. Well, like I was about to say, I started to hang out with my friend from the IA records room, and he told me that one of the guys has been looking at the files for the policeman at our precinct. Oh, really? Mark replies, surprised. Why would he be doing this? As far as I know, no one at our office has done anything to warrant an investigation. That's what I was thinking, she says. I tried to get him to give me more information about it, but he wouldn't. Oh man, we have got to find out who the agent is and get a hold of that information, Mark replies. Yes, that's also what I was thinking. So I did some digging and… But just as Gina was about to finish her statement, a group of people sat in front of her and Mark. Anyways, Gina whispers, as one of the people in front of them turns around and says, Shh. Gina is about to continue when Mark notices one of the people in the group is eavesdropping on the conversation. Mark motions for Gina to follow him. They leave the theater. Mark does a quick look around, and all looks clear. They walk down the sidewalk to finish the conversation.